Pawn Stars may seem like a friendly show where Rick, Corey, and Chumlee examine historical treasures while joking around, but behind the cameras, and in some rarely repeated episodes, the reality is much harsher. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, located in Las Vegas, receives all kinds of clients daily, from enthusiastic tourists to desperate sellers looking for quick cash. However, when tempers flare at Gold and Silver Pawn, things can get ugly quickly. Today, we reveal the 5 times the Harrisons had to show their less friendly side to customers. And believe us, some of these confrontations would make even the old man blush. Known for his direct temper and little patience for nonsense. Number 5, the Jimi Hendrix guitar scam. The crown jewel of pawn shop disasters came in the form of a supposedly authentic Jimi Hendrix guitar. A well-dressed man claiming to be a music industry insider brought in a Fender Stratocaster, insisting it was played by Hendrix at Woodstock. The guitar looked the part, worn in all the right places with what appeared to be authentic modifications Hendrix was known for. The seller even had a certificate of authenticity from a respected music memorabilia expert. Rick, seeing dollar signs, called in his own expert. To everyone's amazement, the expert authenticated the guitar, estimating its value at over $2 million. Excited by the prospect of such a valuable piece, Rick negotiated hard and eventually bought the guitar for $1,500,000, the largest single purchase in the shop's history. For weeks, the Harrisons celebrated their coup. The guitar was displayed prominently, attracting crowds of rock and roll enthusiasts. Plans were made for a special Pawn Stars episode featuring the iconic instrument, but their joy was short-lived. A routine secondary authentication performed before the insurance company would cover the guitar revealed a horrifying truth. The guitar was a sophisticated fake. The wood was indeed old, but it had been artificially aged. The wear patterns were skillfully applied by an expert forger. Even the certificate of authenticity was a masterful counterfeit. The Harrisons had fallen victim to an elaborate scam involving multiple con artists, including the seller and the first expert who had authenticated the guitar. The fallout was catastrophic. The shop's reputation took a massive hit, and the financial loss was staggering. It took years for Gold and Silver Pawn to recover from this blow, both financially and in terms of public trust. These 5 incidents serve as stark reminders that behind the glossy veneer of reality TV, the pawn business is fraught with risks and challenges. The Harrisons have learned their lessons the hard way. But as they often say, in Vegas, the house always wins. Eventually. Do you know any other legendary confrontation that should be on this list? Is there any Pawn Stars incident you'd like us to investigate thoroughly? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the dark side of pawn shops. In our next article, Hidden Treasures, objects the Harrisons rejected that later became worth millions. Don't miss it. Number 4, the melted gold coin catastrophe. Imagine this nightmare scenario for any antique dealer. You buy a valuable gold coin collection for $12,000 in cash. You immediately melt them down to resell the precious metal, a common practice in times of high gold prices, and then discover they were stolen. This nightmare scenario became reality for the Harrisons in 2014, in a case that shook not only the store, but the entire numismatic community. It all started when Jennifer, a respectable-looking woman in her 30s, entered the store with an impressive collection of American gold coins. She explained that she had inherited the collection from her recently deceased uncle and needed the money to pay medical debts. The collection included several Double Eagle $20 coins from the early 20th century, some Liberty Head $10 coins, and several commemorative pieces, all in excellent condition. Rick, always knowledgeable about the value of gold, examined the pieces and offered $12,000, basing his valuation primarily on the metal content rather than the numismatic value. The transaction was even recorded for the show, with Rick explaining, "Sometimes we have to make business decisions. The collector's market is unstable, but gold." Just 3 days after the purchase, William, a visibly agitated man, burst into the store demanding to speak with the manager. The real blow came when William presented professional appraisals valuing the collection at approximately $50,000 due to the rarity and condition of several pieces, one 1927 Double Eagle in particular, which the Harrisons had valued only for its gold content, could have fetched up to $20,000 alone at a special. The problem? The coins had already been melted down for resale as bullion, a legal and common practice in the business when items are bought for metal value. The situation worsened when William attempted to sue the shop, arguing that Nevada law requires pawn shops to hold pawned items for 30 days before selling or altering them. precisely to protect rightful owners in cases of theft. However, a specific loophole for gold and other precious metals allowed the Harrisons to escape legal consequences, though not without a significant stain on their reputation within the collecting community. Technically, we didn't do anything illegal, Rick explained in a subsequent statement, but morally, I feel terrible. If we had known they were stolen, we never would have bought them. Jennifer was eventually arrested and later convicted of grand larceny and fraud, serving 18 months in prison. As part of her sentence, she was ordered to compensate her uncle, but lacking financial resources, William never recovered the true value of his lifelong collection. This case also led to significant changes in the shop's practices. They now retain antique coins for at least 30 days before melting, even when not legally required to do so, and consult databases of stolen items when acquiring high-value pieces. The incident served as a harsh reminder of the risks inherent in the pawn business, where the pressure to make quick decisions can sometimes lead to costly mistakes. It underscored the importance of due diligence, even with seemingly legitimate sellers, and the need for robust verification processes. Number 3, the Vietnam veteran's vengeance. Not all confrontations at gold and silver pawn involve fake items. Sometimes the drama comes from misunderstandings and hurt feelings. This was precisely the case with Daniel Callahan, a Vietnam War veteran who starred in one of the most controversial incidents in the store's history. What began as a normal workday in 2012 ended up in court and local newspaper headlines. Callahan entered the store intending to sell a World War II M1 Garand rifle, a historic piece that had belonged to his father. According to witnesses, from the beginning he showed erratic and aggressive behavior, demanding to speak directly with the famous guys and not with the regular employees who attend to most customers on high-traffic days. When informed he had to wait like everyone else, the situation began to deteriorate rapidly. Callahan, who walked with a cane due to a war injury, apparently began shouting obscenities and threatening the staff, creating a scene that alarmed tourists waiting in line outside the establishment, many with small children. According to the lawsuit he later filed, Callahan alleged that Rick and the old man subdued him, dragged him through the store, and threw him onto the sidewalk, along with his rifle and cane, damaging both in the process. He also claimed that during the altercation, the old man had said, "Veteran or not, we don't accept that kind of behavior here." Corey Harrison's version, who was present during the incident, was radically different. The guy was completely out of control, with a weapon in his hand and about 4,000 people waiting outside to enter the store. He was screaming, "I want to see the owner," while causing a commotion that scared our customers. We had to protect our people. Callahan demanded $20,000 in compensation for physical, emotional, and property damages. He also alleged discrimination against a disabled veteran, which could have potentially been devastating for the Harrison family's public image. However, the Harrisons had something more valuable than any object in their store: dozens of security cameras strategically placed throughout the premises, presumably showing the truth behind the incident. The case never went to trial. An out-of-court settlement was reached, with the amount and terms remaining confidential, though sources close to the family claim it was for a symbolic amount, far from the $20,000 initially requested. Sometimes it's cheaper to pay a few dollars than to spend time and energy on a trial, even when you're right, Rick would later comment in an interview without specifically referring to this case. We may never know exactly what happened that day, but one thing is certain: when you enter gold and silver pawn demanding special attention and causing disturbances, don't expect VIP treatment, especially if you're carrying what could potentially be considered a weapon. Number 2, the statue that unleashed fury. Greek mythology has always fascinated collectors and ancient history enthusiasts. Classical art, with its heroic figures and perfect proportions, represents a valuable segment of the antiques market. So when a customer came in with a supposedly original 1888 Perseus statue created by a famous French sculptor, Rick couldn't hide his initial interest. The piece in question was approximately 60 centimeters tall and depicted the Greek hero holding Medusa's head. Elaborately crafted and characteristic of 19th century European sculptures, it appeared authentic at first glance. The customer, a man dressed in an expensive suit who introduced himself as a university professor of classical art, was asking $15,000 for the statue, claiming to have documentation proving its origin in a Parisian workshop. "My grandfather brought it from France after World War II," he explained with an air of academic superiority that immediately put Rick on the defensive. It's been in my family ever since. Rick, always cautious but visibly intrigued, began his usual examination. He first admired the artistic work, then verified the weight, and finally, with magnifying glass in hand, looked for manufacturer's marks or foundry seals. The problem began when Rick detected suspicious details that didn't fit the story. The cracks didn't match the natural wear a piece of that age should show. They seemed artificially created to simulate antiquity. The texture of the metal under the patina showed marks from modern tools, and the final blow was a small stamp discreetly hidden under the base that said "Made in USA" on a piece supposedly French from the late 19th century. "I'm sorry, but this isn't authentic," Rick said with his characteristic firmness. "It's a modern reproduction. Probably from the 60s or 70s. To everyone's surprise, the customer didn't accept reality. His face changed immediately as his voice rose several decibels. "How dare you? Do you know who I am? I'm a professor of classical art. I've studied these pieces all my life while you were here selling stolen guitars and fake watches." What began as a routine negotiation escalated into a confrontation where the customer practically accused Rick of incompetence, ignorance, and even fraud. The shouting got so loud that Antoine, the security guard, left his usual position near the entrance to approach the main counter, fearing the situation might turn physical. "You have no idea what you're looking at. This is worth more than your entire damn store," the customer continued, repeatedly hitting the counter. The tension was palpable. The old man, Richard Harrison, always the vigilant patriarch of the operation, finally intervened from his desk with his direct, no-frills style. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to lower your voice and behave like an adult. In this store, we have a simple rule. If we're not sure about an object, we don't buy it, and we're definitely not going to be insulted in our own business." It was his polite way of saying, "Get out of my store." The veteran Marine's steely gaze made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. As the furious customer left, he audibly muttered that the Harrisons had just lost a great opportunity. What he didn't understand was that Rick had just avoided throwing away thousands of dollars on a modern reproduction that, at best, was worth a few hundred. The door may not have literally closed in his face, but it's clear that this customer is permanently banned from Gold and Silver Pawn. Months later, Rick would comment in an interview that this was precisely why he always consults external experts. No matter how much you think you know, there's always someone who knows more. The difference is that some of us accept our limitations and others don't. Number 1, the shackles that shackled Rick. Rick Harrison can spot fakes from miles away, or at least that's what we all thought. His eye, trained by decades in the business, is legendary, capable of identifying subtle differences between an authentic Rolex and a Chinese imitation with just a glance. But even masters have bad days, as became painfully clear in the episode of the infamous Wells Fargo shackles. It all started when a picturesque-looking customer entered the store with what he described as an authentic relic from the Wild West. These were ball and chain shackles, supposedly used by Wells Fargo to transport dangerous prisoners in the 1870s. The most impressive thing was that they came in their original wooden box with the Wells Fargo logo engraved in a metal plate with a serial number. "This is part of American history," assured the seller with a Texan accent. "My great-grandfather was a security agent for Wells Fargo, and these were his official shackles." Rick, as usual, meticulously examined the piece, paying special attention to the chain, locking mechanisms, and the metal's patina. Almost immediately, his internal alarms went off. "These shackles are not from the period," he declared confidently. "The type of welding on the chain is modern, and the locking mechanism uses a design that didn't exist in the 1870s. The customer, visibly disappointed but not combative, nodded understandingly. But then Rick made a huge mistake he rarely makes. He decided to buy the box for $450, assuming that at least this was authentic and would have value for Old West memorabilia collectors. The box seems to be from the correct period, Rick reasoned, and Wells Fargo collectors would pay well for it even without the shackles. Normally, Rick would have called an expert before making the purchase, but that day he was particularly busy, and the sum wasn't large enough to justify delaying production. So, he quickly closed the deal and stored the box to evaluate it in more detail later. 2 weeks later, when the Old West antiques expert finally could examine the piece, his verdict was merciless. It was a completely fabricated piece. Not only were the shackles modern, but the box was also a contemporary fabrication, skillfully aged with techniques that would fool most, but not a true expert. The Wells Fargo logo had been copied from modern images, and the metal plate used a type of brass that wasn't employed at the time. In short, everything, shackles and box, was as fake as a $3 bill. The old man, never known for his tact or diplomacy, gave Rick such a legendary sermon that it could almost be considered verbal abuse in some states. 30 years in this business, and you fall for a trick as old as that, growled the patriarch. You should give me your store keys and come back when you remember what I taught you. Rick, usually composed, looked visibly humiliated. Not so much for the $450 loss, the store regularly handles much larger losses, but for having ignored his own motto, always consult an expert.